Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Durrett, Mayor of Montgomery County, and just excited to do another one of our series of shining the spotlight on people who serve in Montgomery County. And today it's my distinct honor of getting to talk to and interview Judge Adrienne Fry, Circuit Court Judge.
Yes, sir. Well,
how are you? You're welcome. How are you?
I'm doing very well today. Thank you for this opportunity.
You're welcome. So I've got some questions. I'm probably not going to follow them, but before we get into your role as a judge, I want everybody to know a little bit more about Judge Fry.
Sure.
So tell us about Judge Fry.
All right. Well, I was born in Nashville. I've never lived anywhere besides Tennessee. I grew up outside, a little bit outside Nashville, so I'm not a native Clarksvillian, although now I call this my home and more importantly my daughter's home. I went to law school at the University of Tennessee. I went straight through. I graduated high school, did undergrad, and then went to UT. And when I graduated from there, I guess my interesting story is that I had intended to go and practice in Nashville for a law firm, but I ended up with a job offer in Clarksville that also had a Nashville office, and realized that during that time that I was in law school and undergrad away, Nashville it had exploded, and I found Clarksville just to be the perfect mix of the community that I kind of grew up in, which was a little bit of a smaller community, as well as the benefits of having that bigger field.
Yeah.
So it was really perfect. And
awesome.
So after that, I decided that this was going to be home, and so I started a law practice here with one law partner, and then we had an associate, and that kind of brings me up to speed. But I absolutely adore Clarksville, Montgomery County, and then as a circuit court judge, I have Montgomery and Robertson County.
Yeah. And
Robertson County is also just kind of a treasure, and I think really complements Montgomery County in terms of industry as well as people, and I'm very fortunate to love the communities I serve.
Awesome. So what started you out of high school? I guess you decided you wanted to be a lawyer.
No.
So what started you down the law school path?
Sure, and it's really interesting. I was talking to a group of young interns at a law firm recently, and they asked me that same question. So when I was in high school, I was I'd get the superlative for shyest, least talkative person there. And so when I went to college, I went to UT. I was freshman year, and I was in engineering. At the end of the year, they have all the students.
No, wait.
Okay.
From engineering to
law. I know.
Law. Okay.
So
keep going.
I didn't like math, and probably math didn't like me, more importantly. So when the semester ended, all the students had to take an aptitude test. And so when I took the aptitude test, the proctor said, well, we have some, yours was really interesting. And when you go into a doctor's office, you never want to hear interesting. And when you hear from a lawyer, you usually don't. But she said to me, you scored off the charts for two very different fields. And the first was a mortician or the law practice. So I elected to pursue.
So the engineer, mortician to law school.
Yes. So long and short of it, then I started majoring in a completely opposite field that probably scared the heck out of my parents at the time. But then once I did, I can say this, I am passionate about the law.
Yeah.
And besides my family, God, and horses, the law is my absolute passion.
What drives that passion?
It's just realizing that our country is the best country on earth. And it is because we have those three separate branches of government. Mm-hmm. And recently I gave a talk to the Noon Rotary Club, and one of the gentlemen in that, who's president or leader of Leadership Clarksville, came up to me afterwards and said, man, you really love the law, and you've really opened my eyes to why it is your passion. And kind of going back, so the Constitution is based on, the preamble says that we are going to have a government based upon laws, not upon men. And 200 years ago, John Adams was very forceful when he said that this is going to be a government of laws, not personalities or men or women for that matter. So I think just realizing that the law is an institution that upholds impartiality and fairness. Mm-hmm. And if you look at our society at large, you look back to Brown versus Board of Education, a decision that at that time and going forward was just paramount to allowing our country to progress in a way that has left us to be, or leads us to be, the best place to live in the whole entire world.
Awesome.
And I can go on.
Gum, you should like be a history teacher too, girl.
You know, and the other thing about Tennessee is our Constitution affords us even more liberties and rights than even the United States Constitution. So if anyone is listening to this and wants to pull out their old Tennessee Constitution, I can say that it's a document that I have read to my daughter despite her probably falling asleep, but it really does. It ignites something inside me that I think is just there to one thing to share with other people, just how fortunate we are and how we should really take a look at that and think this is we've got something special.
That is so cool. That is so cool. So did that passion for the law, did that create that passion to be on the bench?
It did. It really did.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, and I can say this after going through the election process for the primaries, I have a heart of service. I really feel strongly about serving the community and serving others. And so that service combined with my passion for the law, proceeding to the bench was just kind of seemed like a natural progression.
Your first step onto the bench was created by Governor Lee.
That's correct.
And so you were appointed back how long ago?
I started the application in April of 2021. And
April of 2021.
So, and when one says appointed by the governor, I want to just,
Well, I'm going to ask you about that. Was that a hard process?
It was an incredibly hard process, and it was such a professionally and personally rewarding process. When one hears appointed by the governor, the steps that go into that are much more arduous than the actual interview with the governor. So it starts out with an application that I filled out in April of 2021, and my predecessor, who was an incredible jurist, Judge Hicks, actually encouraged me before he announced his retirement to apply for his seat and so after the written application is no joke. You have to go through and you have to answer questions about whether or not you would follow the law and give examples of times during your career when you've been presented with, well, this is the law and I don't like it, but I've got to follow it, which is what a trial court judge is called to do. And so after that, there are a series of interviews with the Trial Court Vacancy Commission, which at the time was made up of 12 attorneys across the state.
Is that hard?
Oh, yes.
Is it intimidating?
Oh, but yes, and our interview actually on June 2nd of 2021 was the longest public interview. It's public too, so.
Oh, it is?
Yes, and you can go online, and if you have a bone to pick with a person on there, you can go in there and they say, is there anyone that has comments on this candidate? And, and so I was up there in the hot seat, the longest of any of the other individuals that were in the group. And so from there, the Trial Court Vacancy Commission selects 3 people to go and proceed on through the process. And after that, you almost immediately have the most daunting TBI background application. You have to go through and provide references from about every stage of your life and all of your diplomas and transcripts and things like that, and then that goes to the TBI and you go down to the... Vetted
pretty hard, huh?
Yes, as you should be, because at the end of the day, judges are required to have that fidelity to the law and not be swayed by any other type of influence. So they do credit checks and all sorts of stuff like that. And so from there, I got to go and I got the thumbs up from the TBI, and then I went and interviewed with not only the governor, but the governor's chief of staff, chief counsel for the state of Tennessee, as well as 2 other government attorneys as well.
Was that hard?
It was a lot of fun.
Was it?
It was difficult, but the first thing that the governor says is, I'm the least qualified person to make this choice because I'm a plumber and you're a lawyer. So, but he really, having a conversation with him was a lot like this. I mean, he wanted to know who I was and
He's a pretty down-to-earth person.
He is, and I had the distinct honor of actually having him host an event for me during the campaign process, which was a huge honor. And then the interview with the chief of council, that interview was a little bit more, that was more substantive. So they asked about your experience, and going through the trial court vacancy interview, that was all substantive. It was asking about your time during practice, the type of cases you handled, notable opinions. I had a case that I argued before the Court of Appeals, had a case go up to the Tennessee Supreme Court. So during my time in private practice, I had done quite a bit.
Awesome. So April of 2021, you applied. When were you actually appointed?
I got the call August 13th, which was the Friday the 13th, and then, which was easy to remember. And then I was sworn in, actually in Robertson County first on the 19th, and then sworn in here, I think on the 20th or 21st. So,
yeah, I was at your swearing in, you and Judge Bateman.
That's right.
Yeah. So Judge Fry, so that's a different path than really the path that you're on now, because you got appointed, but you were filling an unexpired term, and so then you had to actually run a campaign, which is totally different than that process of going through an interview.
Absolutely. It's about, I mean, I don't think that the experiences could be any different. So, yes.
But you had an opponent in the primary.
I
you
did.
Don't have an opponent in the general election, so we can say vote Judge Adrienne Fry for Circuit Court Judge in August, and you'll be elected, and you'll be serving an 8-year term, correct?
8-year terms.
Awesome.
Yes.
So I want to go back to August, whatever day it was. What was your first day on the bench? Can you say what your first thing before you was?
Absolutely.
Were you nervous?
I was so nervous, and I actually reached out to Judge Hicks and Judge Ayers, who Rob Bateman took her position when she went to the Court of Criminal Appeals. I prayed real hard, and I tried to not faint, and it was a huge docket. It was, so we have, I know that one of the questions was a typical day, and I can tell you, Fridays in most fields are kind of the relaxing day. Fridays as a trial court judge are the motion days, and those are generally the largest dockets during the week. So the day I took the bench, it was August 27th, and people had been waiting for that position to be filled since Judge Hicks announced his retirement 6 months prior. So so I had a standing room only courtroom of people, and had a docket that had healthcare liability actions for millions of dollars, and motions for
that had to be pretty intimidating.
It was, but it was.
So like you're going there your first day, and somebody's like walking up a motion to dismiss or whatever. Oh my gosh.
And so the way that I prepare for motion dates is I have all of the files pulled from the circuit court clerk's office, and then I review every single file. So I'm familiar with what happened in the case a year ago, 6 months ago, before I took the bench, and so I prepare for the motion that's set to be heard. And then I usually do a pretty hefty amount of research too, so that I'll be up to speed on whatever case law there is out there that directs the judge in one way or the other. So.
Wow. So your day, you kind of talked about a Friday. So the rest of your week, so if you just of course this wasn't a typical week because we were off on Monday, but say next Monday, you're gonna start and you may have a docket and you may have a trial.
Yes.
And I don't wanna, but I want you to get into this a little bit, but I don't wanna I don't wanna speak bad about the general sessions and the juvenile judges, but what y'all are doing is a lot different than what they're doing. I mean, you may have something that comes before you, and you may have to write a 25, 35, 40-page brief on it, and most of theirs are adjudicated in their courtroom on that day. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
Kinda.
It is. They have a very important role. They have a lot, the volume there is a lot.
Totally
more.
different than y'all's,
And
yeah.
So for me, I can give you for instance, that after the interview concludes today, I'll go to Springfield to hear the second day of a trial that is it will require a very detailed opinion from me, because likelihood is the party that does not prevail will appeal that to the Court of Appeals, which is the trial court level is a court of record. So our cases go from our courtroom. If there's a party that doesn't like the decision, then they appeal it to Nashville, where the Court of Appeals and then the Tennessee Supreme Court sit. But so as far as kind of going back to the trial level, we hear the cases that take witnesses and take days. We hear the jury trials. In fact, I've been privileged in the short time that I've been on the bench to have jury trials in both Montgomery County and Robertson County. And so that's distinctly different from the general sessions and the juvenile court jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And so the trial court level, we hear adoptions, we hear termination of parental rights cases, cases that involve heavy sentences for felony offenders. Life sentence is only can only be done through a trial court level, as well as granting of a divorce or a car wreck case that has damages that exceed a certain amount. So we hear typically our cases are kind of go that direction.
Are jury trials harder than other trials?
Yes and no. My very first jury trial was a car wreck case, and the way that it gets to a jury is interesting. So before the jury trial actually starts, generally the week before, we have a pretrial conference. And so both attorneys say, these are things that we don't want the jury to hear, and we need you to rule on if we can bring this evidence in. So a lot of the work is done even on the front end of a jury trial, which is pretty interesting, because juries will never know if a party has, like in the car wreck case, the rules of evidence preclude any mentioning of insurance, which is is interesting to think, because
that is interesting.
And then certain offenses, like on the criminal level, if you've been convicted of certain offenses, the jury can't know that. If you're on trial for murder of another in another court, and you're on trial for murder in this court, you don't know about that other pending charge.
Oh, wow.
It's the law is incredible, and we have a lot of rules. I gave a talk to a group of elementary school kids shortly before school concluded, and I said, I had them all raise their hand if they like rules, and to my surprise, almost all of them did. And I said, rules give us the boundaries, and then as judges, we have to follow the rules, and whether that is law or the case law that dictates which direction we go. But that being said, attorneys still try to fit their scenario to the rule, and we have to decide that. So for a jury trial case, once it gets to that level, a lot of the contested evidence has already been disposed of. So it's, I have to listen carefully when there are objections, and then rule on those objections, and make sure that the jury doesn't hear anything that would pollute their sense of job and duty to administer justice. But it's so neat to talk to the jury after the fact. They had,
oh, I bet it is.
Oh, they've had really interesting questions and perceptions, and then as a judge, I've done jury trials in private practice, but as a judge, I like to watch the jury. And there was one woman on a jury who the witness said something that completely, I guess, rubbed her the wrong way, and she rolled her eyes and crossed her arms, and it was just, it's kind of an exercise in psychology to watch it.
So I've never been like in a jury trial setting. Of course, you watch all this stuff on TV.
Sure.
And you see these lawyers up there, they're getting in front of the jurors, in front of where they sit, and that really doesn't happen in a real courtroom that much. It's kind of dramatized.
To some degree, it depends on the attorney.
I can imagine.
And that actually is interesting, because in law school, I was on the trial team, so the team that got selected, and we learned about courtroom, not necessarily drama, but courtroom, how to best advocate for your client in terms of positioning in the courtroom.
Mhm.
And so as a judge, that's interesting to see the attorneys doing some of that, and then I have to lay out ground rules too about how close you can get to the jury box.
Yeah.
And gosh, coming out of COVID, we've had to,
God.
I don't even wanna say that word, but, we had jury trials that were, we tried to accommodate with a lot larger social distancing, and so that wreaked havoc on trying to
Yeah.
restrain the attorneys from walking around too much.
So you are circuit judge part
Part one,
one?
yes.
What's part one mean?
Well, really, we just have different designations, although we all have the ability to hear each other's cases.
Mhm.
So my jurisdiction is the same in part one as it is in part five and all of them in
Okay.
between.
Okay.
But our makeup here that we've kind of selected to do is to have two circuit judges that hear exclusively criminal cases.
Tell everybody how many there is for
Oh, sure.
Montgomery and Robertson County.
So we have 5 circuit court judges and 1 chancellor. So I'm in part one. There's Judge Goodman, and then Judge Bateman, Judge Crozier, and Judge Olita. I think I swapped 2 of those, but those
Yeah.
are our five circuit court judges, and then Chancellor McMillan.
Yeah.
And Chancery is a different beast. It's a court of equity. A lot of the jurisdiction is concurrent with circuit, but there are some peculiarities that land in Chancery.
But you do serve Montgomery and Robertson County,
Yes, that's correct, and
that's true with all of the circuit court judges.
with all of the circuit court judges as well as the chancellor. So that means that we are doing double time sometimes. I'll have a case in Montgomery County and then have to go do work in Robertson County that same time. And
Yeah.
so we actually have a very large caseload, and we should have 2 more judges for the trial court level, according to the weighted caseload study, which is.
Well, so do you but your office, for lack of better words, here in Montgomery County?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So how many days a week are you in Robertson County?
Well, monthly, typically about 4 to 5 days in Robertson County that are just exclusively Robertson County. But because we're all in the 19th Judicial District, if there's a case, for instance, I have a relocation case that is time sensitive here in Montgomery County, but I have an opening for another trial date in Robertson County, I'll offer that to the Montgomery County attorneys.
Gotcha.
So that they get heard quicker.
And Judge, you may have mentioned this, but if you did, I was just involved in something else you'd said, but there's 5 of y'all, or 4 of you, however many it is. Or do some of y'all primarily focus on divorces and somebody takes more murder trials or whatever?
Yes, the 2 divisions are exclusively criminal, and
I knew it was something there, yeah.
That's Judges Bateman and Goodman. And then Judges Olita and myself and Judge Crozier have a rotating distribution of cases. So I hear car wreck cases, Judge Olita does, Judge Crozier does, and as a case comes in, it just gets assigned a judge.
Yeah, but those 2, Bateman and Goodman, are pretty much criminal.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. Mm-hmm.
Well, would they do a divorce?
They could.
Yeah.
And, there have been occasions where a case has come through that I've known the litigants, or Judge Olita's known the litigants, and so it is distributed such that if one of them needs to hear it because the other judges have recused themselves, then that could be an occasion.
Yeah. So, presiding judge, I hear it. The reason I hear it is we have meetings with county officials, like the courts security committee and the court center committee, and the presiding judge of circuit and the presiding judge of general sessions are there. How do you become the presiding judge?
It's a rotation.
Okay.
So
it's not like a vote, and it's kind of just like a rotation thing.
I think so. And I think it'll be slightly different just with the elections going on and Judge Crozier's retirement, but it's a rotation, and whoever pulled the short straw during COVID really got the, I think it was Judge Ayers.
Yeah.
So it's, the presiding judge deals with some of the administrative.
Yeah, and
aspects.
I wasn't really making light of it because it's really like if there's an order comes down from the Supreme Court that says you do this, the presiding judge is kind of the one that I would guess distributes that or hears it or gets it or whatever. Yeah.
Disseminates it, and then, you know, one of the, and then we also deal with courtrooms. We have 5 circuit judges and less courtrooms than judges, so a lot of the role of divvying up or figuring out who's going to be in which courtroom also falls on the presiding.
It goes to the presiding. Have you been that yet?
No, it comes up in September, so it's a 2-year rotation for circuit.
Do you want me to make a couple of calls for you?
I've been so busy from the everything else. It's like, but you know, we have the best group of, I consider all of my fellow circuit court judges family, and we have the opportunity to go to judicial conference, and I'll say the 19th Judicial District is usually we're the group that everybody wants to come join.
Yeah.
Because we have just such wonderful camaraderie.
Awesome.
And all of my colleagues are incredible. So I'm very fortunate.
When I ran in 2014 for county mayor, Judge Goodman was running, and I got to know Judge Goodman and his wife really well, and I highly respect him. I respect all of y'all, but he's just a solid guy. He's a solid guy, yeah.
And Diane is just,
she's a sweetheart. She's a sweetheart. And I probably, I don't mean this other than the way it is, but I probably knew you least of all the judges. I've known Katie a long time. As I said, how I got to know Judge Goodman, known Ted Crozier, and Judge Bateman. So awesome. So this is gonna be, I don't know why, but I think this is gonna be a hard question for you. So what's one of the most gratifying experiences that you've had since you've been a judge?
Well,
and let me just interrupt you, because I'm gonna be like, I put that guy in jail because he was a murderer. So, no. Yeah, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, I don't know if I should answer that question, but I want to ask it. What is it?
It's sharing my experience with others and younger generations. As far as a personal level, the gratifying experience is just getting to hopefully instill faith in the judicial system. So I've gone to multiple schools and had homeschool groups and Cub Scout groups come in and just teach them a little bit about the judiciary and about what role we play and why there needs to be faith in the integrity of the judiciary, especially after things like the Dobbs leak and some of the other aspects of the court system that have really maybe tarnished due to people's actions. And as far as gratifying on the bench, it's just, I had an adoption case that was really, it had been a long time coming it was multiple kids, and they had gone through a lot of turbulence in their life. And so for me to be able to grant that adoption was just, it'll get me choked up.
Oh, so, God, I mean, got chill bumps. I got chill bumps.
But it is, it's a job that, I don't really even call it a job, I call it a calling, because it certainly is for the service that we do. Awesome.
So when you leave here and you're gonna go back and you're gonna go in, we're gonna be walking in the courthouse, and you run into this couple and they're just looking around, and you find out that they're thinking about moving to Montgomery County. Of course, you weren't born and raised here,
no.
But you moved here and you've chosen Montgomery County as your home. Well, why would you tell them Montgomery County is the place they need to move?
Because when I approach them, they'll know that it's a friendly community, and it's really a community that feels like home, even if you're not necessarily from here. And that's why I've told people I couldn't pick where my parents had me, it's one of those things, but I certainly could pick where I chose to have my daughter and raise her and my family. And so I tell them that it's just aspects like that, and people, you walk down the street and you see people talking to each other, and you just have that sense of community.
Yeah.
And then you can also go and enjoy the park. We're at Rotary Park all the time, and then here in this building, I know that library next door pretty inside and out. And so just the aspects of the community feel, as well as if you look around, we're growing, we're booming, and I think it's
Awfully
wonderful.
blessed, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah.
We certainly are.
Well, I've been so blessed to have this conversation with you. I've learned a lot.
Well, likewise.
Yeah, especially the historian that you are.
Oh,
Yeah.
I had to temper myself because I can go into that, and I'm a huge fan of judicial biographies. So learning about kind of our justices and where they came from is pretty cool too.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you for your service. I know it's a big step to like put your name in a hat. You talked about this appointment process. That had to be grueling, but then to go through an election as well. And politics are politics, but thank you, and it's just been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, congratulations
Thank
on your
you.
victory in August too.
Oh, gosh.